Okay. Hi, everyone. My name is Dr. Trisha Rampersad. I'm the Core Behavioral Therapist, and today I have such a treat. I'm here with Nadia Jagessar, and I hope I said your last name right.
Yes, you did.
Yes, I wouldn't be a good Indo-Caribbean American woman if I didn't say it right. And she is from the Netflix hit show Indian Matchmaking, and she's also a renowned wedding planner. I just want to thank you, Nadia, for being on my podcast and YouTube channel. Thank you so much.
Of course. Thank you for having me.
You're welcome. This is great. You know, I had to have you on. So this is a mental health podcast, but I had to have you on because you were so brave to be on Indian Matchmaking. And I wanted to know what made you decide, what was the deciding factor to make you go on Indian Matchmaking?
So application process was like fairly simple. It was like send a picture, answer a few questions. And my girlfriend who sent the casting email to me, she was like, I think you'd be so great for this. And I was just like, oh, whatever. And I just kind of sat on it. And then I was like, you know what? I have nothing to lose. I was like, let me try. Like, I've tried apps. I've tried meeting people in person. I've tried like literally everything. And I was just like, look, I have nothing to lose. And so I was like, let me just send this in, obviously not thinking that they would pick me. And then when they called, I was just like, let's do this. And
Absolutely.
that was it.
You are my absolute favorite because there's so many women who, and even guys too, but there's so many women who went through what you went through in the dating process. And I just wanted to know, how did you mentally prepare to go on these dates while you were on the show?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think my mental preparation for this was any different than going on a regular date. Because I mean, the dates were the same. I mean, it's like two people going and meeting up, especially like a first date where you don't know the person. And so the only factor here was the camera and sometimes really good lighting. And so I felt very comfortable in front of the camera. When I was younger, I used to model and I'm a dancer. And so being in front of the camera was nothing that was it wasn't frightening to me in any way. And so, yeah, I think I just went into the dates as I would any other date. Yeah. No expectation.
So it was so awesome. I was just like, she's so brave. And you went on a date with someone who was half Trinidadian, like me. So that was pretty cool.
Yeah.
For me to see that the Indo-Caribbean community was being represented in mainstream media. So that was so cool. And your modeling pictures, your pictures that I've seen recently, they're just beautiful and gorgeous.
Oh, thank you.
Great job. Yeah.
Thank you.
You know, what are some issues that you see in the Indo-Caribbean community that you'd like to see changed?
Ooh, girl, that could be a whole podcast on its own.
You can limit like one or two if you want.
I would say the top one or two things that I would love to see change or change made would be like gender roles. I feel like Indo-Caribbeans are still really stuck in men do this and women do this, and that's not the case anymore. Or in my opinion, it's not. So I would say that was one thing. And another thing would probably be just like really owning who we are. I think sometimes, or at least like where I grew up, it was something that I didn't really include in my life until a little bit later on. And I know some of my cousins are also like that, where they don't really like acknowledge their West Indian side. And so they just kind of like leave it as like, oh, this might be like a fun fact I can throw, but it's not something that they truly embrace. So I would say embrace it, but also be able to, fight that gender role. That's a big one for me.
Yeah, totally. As far as as far as I see, like when you're supposed to be married and like when you're supposed
let me add that one too.
Like those are all gender roles and expectations and yeah. I totally agree. You know, we're both Jersey girls and we both grew up in New Jersey. But I was so appreciated when you went to Sybil's in Queens, because I was born there and grew up in Queens, Richmond area. And when you showed Sybil's, that was so awesome. I was like, oh, I know that roti shop. I know that place. Like, yes, representation.
Well, they asked me, they were like, where do you go for West Indian stuff? Because there's not a lot of West Indian grocery stores in Jersey. And I was like, oh, well, we go to Sybil's. And so they were just like, can we go there? I was like, we can. So we went, and within like maybe 10-15 minutes, they had all the waivers signed, they had everything. It was like boom, 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 because they said, oh, a Guyanese girl wants to shoot here. Yeah. And so they were just like, and they said Netflix, and then it was just like, okay. And so quickly, like, the whole thing came together, and we were able to shoot there, which was awesome.
That is so cool. I was just like, oh, I know that place. I was so cool that how everything just came together like that.
Yeah.
You know, I grew up in a predominantly white neighborhood in Jersey, and I don't know if you did too.
Same.
Oh. And I had my experiences, and I wanted to ask you, since we're both Jersey girls, what was it like for you to grow up in New Jersey, and have you experienced any racism based on where you grew up in Jersey?
Yeah, I mean, my experience growing up in Jersey was awesome. I think, I mean, my parents originally when they came had wanted to live in Queens because that's where everybody had family. But then my dad's uncle was in Jersey, so they ended up moving to Jersey to be closer to him. And then, I mean, my parents didn't like skimp on anything for us. Like whatever we want, it felt like whatever I wanted, like they were able to provide it for me, even though now I know that they were like struggling to do that, but it never felt like that. Mm-hmm. In terms of growing up, so I would say in elementary school was kind of my first like kind of touch point with racism. There were these girls who like would push me in the sandbox and like, you know, like basic kid stuff, but it was because I wasn't like a little white girl. I looked different than them. And then when we moved in 5th grade to another town, and that was where I went through high school. Even though it was a predominantly white town, I felt like I was kind of living in a bubble, because I felt like everyone was just really accepting, and it was a bubble essentially. And then when I went to college and then realized like, oh, people aren't nice like this, and then it was a little bit of a, you know, shook me a little bit. But I mean, I think I've been pretty lucky in that I haven't experienced it as badly as other people may have, and I'm very grateful for that. But yeah, I mean, I've heard some horror stories of people, you know.
Yeah, I've definitely experienced a lot of racism. Yeah, too.
Yeah. I mean, I'm definitely grateful that my experience was the way that it was, but it also makes me think like, well, why was I living in that bubble? What was going on in the town? Did I just not know? Did the kids weren't like that? Like, I don't know, there's a few questions there too, so.
Yeah, there's a lot of self-reflecting. Yeah, so good. Totally. And what are your fondest memories of New Jersey growing up?
Jersey, I mean, everyone always hates on Jersey, but to be honest.
I know, right? I don't get it. I don't understand. They think we're all like the Jersey Shore people. I'm like, yeah. Nothing like them.
Exactly. My fondest memory growing up, so there was this is like such a Jersey thing. So there is this one deli in New Jersey that it's like literally a hole in the wall. Like Booton's a really old town, and this is like a hole in the wall deli, has been here for like, I don't know, 80 years or something like that. They make the best Taylor ham, egg and cheese sandwiches. Oh my goodness, we still go to this place, and like the same owner is still there. He is very old right now, but that is like probably the coolest thing, because like when we were growing up, my dad, like if he would go groceries on Saturday or Sunday or whatever, he would go and he'd bring back Taylor ham and egg, and like that was just like a thing. And then I would say, so that's like super Jersey. And then once I got old enough to realize that like some of my friends had shore houses, then it was like, oh, I can go like down the shore. And so a lot of the town that we lived in was pretty well to do, and so a lot of my friends had shore houses that we didn't, but I would enjoy my other friends' shore houses.
Nice. I think everyone had a shore house down down the Jersey Shore. I think everyone over the summer or something. So
Yeah, and so that was nice to like do that with my friends, and then I had like that real Jersey experience. So I would say those are probably like the two things that are like real Jersey about me.
absolutely. Those are good answers. Oh my goodness. Awesome. We probably ran into each other and didn't even know it.
Oh, I'm sure.
Have you ever visited Guyana?
Yes. So I went when I was 2 years old. That was the first time. My mom took me to meet my Nani and Nana because they were still in Guyana at the time. And then I went again in 2018, in March of 2018. So I was obviously much older. And my Nani was there. She goes back almost every year for like a few months. And this specific time I wasn't working, and it was part of my like spring break from grad school.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was just like, oh, okay. I was like, why don't I just go now? Like, this is the time. And so I only did a 4-day trip because I was nervous. I was like, well, what if I like it? What if I get sick? What if
Right.
anything happens? And so I only did 4 days. And like on the 4th day, I was like, damn, I wish I stayed longer. Like, I really enjoyed myself. But yeah, that was the last time that I went.
What was your fondest memory when you visited Guyana?
It was really nice too. So my nanny came with us out during the day. That was when we did all of like our sightseeing, and they would take me out and all the different places. I stayed with very distant cousins of mine.
Okay.
And so they were nice enough, like I said, to take me around and see all these things. And so Nani would come with us during the day. And as we were like driving, she'd be like, oh, that's where, I went to school, and that's where we lived, and that's where your dad went to school. And I got to see all of these places that my parents spoke about growing up, or that were significant in shaping them as people, or like school. They spent years of their life at school, and so it was really special to go and see all of those things with my Nani as well.
That's so nice. And it's also you like immersing yourself in your culture a bit too. That's so special. That's
Yeah.
awesome. Given what happened at the Capitol, we don't have to discuss it or not, but that was pretty intense. I mean, what was your reaction? What happened to the Capitol?
I honestly left work early that day because I was just like, I can't deal with this. I must have cried like 2 or 3 times. And
Yeah.
typically I don't involve myself so strongly into politics where to the point of tears.
Right.
But I have no idea what it was about that particular incident that really like struck a chord with me. I came home so upset. Like when I called my mom, I was like driving home and I called my mom just like talk to her, and she was just like, oh, like it's not a big deal. Like you being upset is not gonna stop like what's happening. And then I was talking to my boss about it because her mom is half Indian, or she's half Indian. Her mom is Indian. And so she said, oh, my mom said the same thing. And she was like, honestly, I think it's because they're immigrants. Like where they came from, something like that happening is like a common place. Like, oh, there's fighting in the government, normal. Oh, there's like a raid somewhere, normal.
Exactly. Yep.
So yeah, I think my mom was just unfazed. Her mom was unfazed. And meanwhile, I'm sitting here like, oh my God, what's happening? The world's falling apart. And so
Yeah.
it was just absolutely shameful. And so it was really upsetting. I was very upset that day, but today gives me hope.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
My family being from Trinidad, it's the same thing. They went through like a coup, or maybe even more than one. And I'm just staring at the screen like, what is happening in America?
Yeah.
Real life? Like, what is happening?
Yeah.
Honestly. How do you practice self-care given that stressful situation? You said you left work early to go home.
Mm-hmm.
How do you practice self-care in general? I mean, you're a dancer, you model, what do you do to practice self-care?
Yeah, so dance has always been my form of therapy, stress and therapy, because sometimes being at a long rehearsal, you're just like, oh, I just want to go home. And then when you're on stage, it's just the greatest form of like self-expression and love, and I absolutely get the biggest adrenaline rush from it. But on a daily, I try and just take time to like at the end of a day just like watch a show and just like completely shut my brain off and just like immerse myself into that. I listen to podcasts. sometimes I even clean. That's like when it's an extreme thing, is like, oh my God, I'm so stressed, or I'm so emotional right now, I need to clean. Which, yeah, it's a way, because you just feel so good after your apartment is clean.
Take pictures of it, post it on social media. Hey,
yeah, yeah. I mean, I do face masks, I do all the like that kind of stuff. I had tried yoga for like a little bit, and I was really liking it. And then now that I moved, my apartment is not so conducive to, you know, me stretching out in all different places. So I don't really do that anymore, but I still enjoyed that. Just even sitting and not touching my phone for 5 minutes is self-care for me.
That's so awesome. Shutting down technology is so helpful. Yeah, and just being, and just having a good laugh, watching a good show or something. It's so good.
Yeah.
Okay, so you know what I wanted to ask you, because Carnival, me being a Trinidadian American, Carnival and Caravana is so big in our community, like the different music, like you like to dance and stuff. Can you talk about, like, have you been to any of those type of festivities, and what kind of music do you like and stuff?
Yeah, so I have not been to Carnival, but I have been to Caravana a few times. And
Shout out to Toronto. Shout out to Toronto, by the way.
The last time I was there, I went, wasn't this past year, obviously, but 2 years ago when Mashal was supposed to perform. And then there was this whole controversy about permits or something, and we didn't get to see him. But I mean, soca music, chutney music, like it's all just been such a huge part of me growing up, or like that one side of me. But I mean, outside of that, I listen to Bollywood music, American music. My mom loves country music, so we also listen to country music. And you know, I love me some like EDM, because after all, I'm a Jersey girl, so you gotta like fist pump somewhere.
You have to, yeah, absolutely. And being a Jersey girl, you know, we have our options of dating all different types of men. I'm sure, as you know, Jersey is very diverse in certain areas. Can you talk about any dating experiences you've had with someone who's Indian, let's say?
Yeah, so actually, fun fact, aside from my first boyfriend ever in life, which was freshman year of high school, aside from him, all of my boyfriends have been Indian. So like their parents are immigrants, and so they're first generation here, similar to me.
Us, yeah.
And it's always been a little bit of a pain point, because they, like, you know, things are great, and then when it comes time to get serious, they're like, well, I actually have to marry a insert wherever their family is from, that type of girl. Or my parents really want this. And I'm like, well, have you ever spoken to your parents about this? Like, especially with my most recent ex, which was like 6 years ago. So not that recent, but the most recent. He was probably the biggest offender of that, because we used to live together. I went on vacation with his family. I used to stay over their house. Like, his mom would text me, call me, whatever. And I'm like, how can you tell me that your parents want you to marry this type of girl when they're okay with us doing all of these other things? And I was like, well, did you ever have this conversation with them? He was like, no. And I was like, well, are you planning on it? And he was like, no. And so that was kind of it. That was like one of the primary reasons we broke up. But to be honest, I dodged a bullet on that one. So okay, that's fine. But it still was like, why would you waste, you know, so many years of my life if you felt this way, or if you knew that this was what was going to happen?
That's like, I feel bad for you, because it's like you were duped, because you were immersed in his family and they seemed okay with it, and then this comes out of left field. Oh, I gotta marry a, let's insert whatever, Gujarati, Punjabi, like whatever you want to insert in there, Jane, you know. So that's unfortunate. I'm sorry to hear that, but I do know, is you know, you've not the only one, and I mean, it's sad, but I'm really sad that happened to you. What I noticed when you were just speaking, the matchmaking lady, Seema, right? I was like, Seema doesn't see Nadia as Indian. I was like, but you are. And I've run into that too, where people from India do not see Indo-Caribbeans as Indian. And what I loved, what I'll never forget what you said on the show, you said, I am Indian, we just came here a little earlier. That's the truth.
Yeah. Yeah, because I mean, even Indians from like South Africa, well, technically they're not Indian too, but Indians from India still see Indians from South Africa as Indians. So I was like, what is it any different if I just move to
Yeah.
this side of the hemispheres, this hemisphere a
Right.
little sooner, than you did.
Right.
And so that was just always such a pain point in relationships. And then yeah, same thing with Sima is that like
Yeah.
she acknowledged that I was different than everybody else.
Mhm.
But like my friends always tell me, they're like, you're the most Indian non-Indian we know, meaning like, I do Bollywood dancing, I do garba, this, I watch movies, music, everything, I'm so immersed. But like, at the end of the day, I'm Guyanese by by my heritage.
Right.
But yes, my ancestry is Indian, and it was just always something that was just like not fully this and not fully
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
And so
Yeah. Yeah, there's Indians in Fiji. There's Indians in South America, Guyana, in the islands like Trinidad. Where my parents are from, South Africa. There's Indians
in Europe.
In Europe. London has a huge population, and especially a huge Indo-Caribbean population.
Yeah.
So yeah, we're everywhere, and we do consider ourselves Indian, just Indo-Caribbean.
Right.
So I'm just, I'm so happy that we're doing this and you're shedding some light. You know what it is? It's ethnic identity.
Right.
It's ethnic identity. That's what it boils down to. Like, what do you identify as?
Yeah.
And I feel like we need to there's a lot of ignorant people out there, and there's racism within the culture, and that needs to just stop,
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's another thing we can add to
That's
the
a
list
whole
of
other
things
thing
that need to get worked on, but
yeah. Okay.
yeah.
Thanks for answering those questions.
Of course.
Okay. Do you believe that there is a stigma in the Indo-Caribbean community when it comes to seeking therapy or getting help for mental health, or even if some people in the Indo-Caribbean community believe that mental health is even an issue?
Yes, 100% a stigma. I remember this was, I don't know, maybe like 8-9 years ago at this point. I was at the time I'd broken up with my boyfriend at the time, and I wanted to go to a therapist because I was like so emotional. I was lashing out in anger. Like anything that happened to me, good, bad, indifferent, my immediate reaction was anger. And I like couldn't understand like why I was doing that. So I told my mom that I wanted to go for therapy. And at the time I was working, and so I had my own money. So it wasn't like I was relying on them for it, but she was just like, why do you need that? She's like, just get over it, or just like blah, blah, blah. And like even my dad too, my brother and I had told my parents that like, oh, we think guys should go to like couples counseling. And they were just like, we don't need that, blah, blah, blah. Meanwhile, they like fight and then they don't talk to each other for days. And we're just like, hello, like, like this isn't healthy. But I think there's just this, again, with like male gender stereotype of like, the man has to be the man and he can't show emotion and he has to like strong arm everything. And so my dad was just kind of like, I'm not doing that. And then my mom, like, I feel like she would do it if my dad would do it, but then like she just needed that push, and I don't know. So yes, I agree that there's 100% a stigma around Indo-Caribbeans and seeking help. I don't know if it's just a generational thing that maybe our parents are like that, and maybe our generation understands the benefits of seeking help and of mental health in all aspects of our lives. But I just I hope that that's something that will change. We can add that to the list too.
Absolutely. I hope that does change. I mean, it's so healthy. And I really wish the Indo-Caribbean community can be more accepting of mental health, and it's not so taboo. And I think some people in other generations feel, oh, I don't want to tell my business to a stranger and just keep it in the family type of thing. So yeah. Can you talk to us about your family support system a bit, about after the show aired? Because I can only imagine what kind of feedback you got from the Indo-Caribbean community. If you can touch base on all of that.
Yeah, I mean, my family, immediate and extended, are literally the best. My immediate family, like my parents especially, like, I mean, my brother has always been ride or die, but my parents are like ride or die, like we will do anything. Like when I was 15 and I was like, I want to be a model, they were like, okay. And so like I remember like my parents would literally, if I had castings and stuff, they would literally leave work, come
Right.
home, pick me up from school, drive me to Manhattan for like a 5-minute casting, and then drive all the way back.
Wow.
And it was just like they came to my sport. Like I played a lot of sports in high school. They came to all my games. They
You
came
played sports? You got to play sports?
yeah, I did volleyball, basketball, and lacrosse.
Awesome. I didn't get to play sports. That's so
Oh, yeah, and I was dancing like while I was doing all of that, and then I tried modeling while I was doing all of that. So it was like
so
I've
cool.
just always been perpetually busy. But yeah, my parents are always just like, whatever you want to do, like we'll figure out how to make it work. And so when I came to them with this, like, oh, hey, I want to shoot this Netflix show, they were just like, what? And it was actually the first day they came to film was 3 weeks after my parents had the surgery. So that was like the first time, like my dad was actually quarantined because he couldn't, his immune system was still really low. He wasn't on his like medication yet. So he had to be quarantined like away from everybody. And then my mom, that was actually that week was the first time she was able to be out and functioning. And so that was the first time she put makeup on, first time she got dressed. And so like to have all this whole crew at your house, like 3 weeks after you have surgery, like they just made it work. And it's like so amazing. So they've always been like that. And I've had nothing but love from my extended family as well. I'm sure there are cousins and aunties and uncles who, oh, you see Nadia on, on the Netflix.
Yeah,
so I'm sure there was a good amount of shit talking too, but I mean, no one has shared any of that with me. I've only heard the positive comments, which are great.
Awesome.
But from the community at large, I got so many messages from people being like, you don't know your own history. You don't know this. My family didn't come as workers. They came as like indentured slaves or whatever.
Which is the same thing.
Right. And I was just like, well, I was just being like PC, but also cool. But yeah, people were really pushing back on like, well, you don't know your own history. You don't know your family, what they did, your ancestors, how they struggled for you. And I was just like, no, I get it. I'm like, when I was in Guyana, I went to the sugarcane fields and I saw the men working and how they were running to catch the truck before it left to drop them all home. And like, I saw all of that stuff. I saw the house my dad grew up in, a tiny little like shack with 9 people in the house. I'm like, I know what it was. I was just like, instead of, you would think being one of the first people, Indo-Caribbeans on a mainstream platform, that people be like, hey, let's support you, instead of being like, let me find everything I can say that will make you tear you down.
Right.
So I did get a lot of pushback from that respect.
I wish it wasn't like that. I'm so sorry to hear that, but I really wish that we were more supportive of one another. I mean, it was a big deal what you did, and it was so mainstream. And I mean, I think you were so brave to do that. And remember when you got ghosted, like women go through that. And I mean, it was so vulnerable. I mean, people go through being ghosted. Do you has that guy ever reached out to you, by the way?
Oh, he has.
Let's hear it.
So basically, when it happened, I obviously didn't talk to him after that because I was just like, F you.
Right.
And then he reached out like right before the show came out, and then like a day or two after it came out. And I was just like, I have nothing to say to you. You had almost a whole year to apologize for what you did.
Absolutely. I think he even went on Twitter at one point. I think he changed his name or description to the guy who ghosted, right? Oh my gosh, I was like, the audacity of that. So
every outlet, anyone and everyone that would listen to him, he was talking to them. And then he was like trying to play the victim and like all this stuff. And I'm like, dude, like he kept saying, oh, I have receipts. I'm like, guess who was on the other end of those receipts? And I was like, I don't understand what that situation was. And I was like, guess who also has the receipts? The producers, because I sent them every single thing.
Right.
And so I just didn't understand that. And yeah, I mean, unfortunately, it is a part of modern dating where, either you go out with a guy and then most of the time it's over text that he will ghost or like he won't call you back or something like that. But like this was literally, he did not show up when he told me he was on the way.
That was horrific.
Yeah, I called him twice. Like, it was just a mess. And I was just like, are you kidding me right now? And so the next morning when I called him, he finally answered, and he's like, got really defensive, obviously, because he knew he was in the wrong. But yeah, I haven't spoken to him since, because I'm like, you had a year to apologize to me for what you've done and or to make it right. And I don't have the bandwidth to deal with that right now.
Right. Those good boundaries you had, really great boundaries. Yeah, he could have at least reached out, which he didn't. You know, are you friends with anyone who was from the cast?
Yeah. So myself and Shaker are still really good friends. Jay, he went out with Parna, so Jay and Dilip. So Jay and I have become closer. And Dilip actually grew up, we went to the same high school. We like went to this
another Jersey girl
town. And because we were on like, so we had these like cast calls, and so we were on the call one day, and he said, "Oh, I'm going home," because he said he lives in Brooklyn, and he said,
so he's sorry.
And I was just like, "Oh," I was like, "Where in Jersey do you live?" And then he said the town he grew up in, and I was just like, "Shut up!" I was like, "I live there," and so so my parents moved from that town to another town after like my brother and I had been graduated a long time. And so I was just like, no way. So once we found out that we went to the same like middle school, high school, we actually had my best friend, her older sister, and Dilip are friends. And I was just like, how small is this world? And so yeah, him and I are good friends. And I exchange messages with the other cast members, but I'd say the three of them are probably the three that I talk to the most. Jagessar.
Yeah.
A gem of a human. I absolutely love him. He is not really on Instagram, and I don't have his actual phone number, but we exchange over Facebook and on Twitter.
That's so awesome that you're
he's so great.
Oh, that's so great. I mean, I'm glad that you're still in communication with them and everything. I mean, and it's good to, you know, have people that are from your community and your circle, and that's really cool. I mean, this is a big deal. Today, people don't really know this, but we're actually doing this the day of Vice President Kamala Harris was inducted and Joe Biden. I mean, what is going through your mind and your emotions right now? What's happening?
I mean, I have been glued to the TV all day because I could not tear myself away from the coverage, and it's just such a proud moment. Like, absolutely, just seeing her walk out and then hearing every speaker say Madam Vice President, and like I literally have chills right now. I wish you could like
me too.
Yeah, it's such an amazing feeling. And I think the poet who spoke at the inauguration was absolutely amazing. I think she, you know, really nailed it. Like a child who was born of the descendants of slaves has, you know, bore a daughter who was raised by a single mother who could grow up and become the Vice President of the United States. It's just absolutely amazing, and it just gives me so much hope for this country, for people of color, for women, and so, you know, we deserve a seat at the table, and this is the first one. We're gonna pull up at a big table.
Your own table too.
Yeah.
Absolutely. It's so inspiring today. It's just, I mean, it's just, this is history. It's just awesome. Yeah. Are you dating anyone? I'm sure people want to know.
I'm sure they do. It's I am, you know, just kind of taking some time for myself because it's with the show coming out, and then I actually work a full-time job as well on top of doing event planning, and so my life has just been an absolute mess, and so to add somebody into that would just be a little messier, and I'm not ready for that yet. So
I hear you. I hear you.
But I am happy, so don't worry.
Very, very happy to hear that.
Yeah.
Do you have any dating advice or anything that you want to tell people about, or?
I'd say dating advice for me, the biggest thing that helped me. So first, this is not sponsored. I am just sharing.
His opinion, by the way.
Yes. I read this book called "It's Just a Fucking Date," And that book like really helped to change my mindset about dating. So in the book, they really talk about, you know, going on a date is not as big of a deal as people make it. People think like, oh my God, if I go on this date, like I'm going to have to marry this guy. I'm going to have to this, whatever.
Yeah.
It's just two humans going to a mutual place and enjoying a meal. And if you continue talking after that, you do. If you don't, you don't. Like you're not getting married at the date.
Right.
And so, I mean, obviously they talk about many other things in the book, but that was kind of like the main takeaway, is that it's just the date. Like,
yeah,
that's it.
Yeah.
And so that book really helped me a lot. And I was in like a pretty low place when I read it. And so it really helped to frame the rest of the dates that I've gone on since then. I think another thing that has really helped me, and I talk about this on the show, is to go in with, for me personally, is go in with low expectations, right? So I'm the type of person, as a planner, I have played out like every possible scenario in my head. And so with that, sometimes I build up excitement because I'm like, oh, what if this is like the first date with my future husband? And like, I want to remember it. And, you know, all of these like super sentimental things. And then I'm just like, okay, it's just us going for pizza and drinking beer, like not a big deal.
Right.
And so I think that going into situations with having low expectations helps me kind of protect myself. And then also, like, if we have a good time, then I have a really great time. And if we don't have a good time, then that's okay too. I'm not going to be disappointed by that. It is just what it is in that situation. And I acknowledge that, and then I move forward. And so those are kind of like two things that's really helped me in dating.
That's awesome. So awesome. Speaking of dating, I'm sure, has anyone ever asked you if you would date outside of your race?
Yeah, actually, it's funny enough, a lot of people don't ask me that because they just assume that I was on Indian matchmaking, so they think I only want to date Indian guys, especially since on the show I said I only want to date Indian guys. But when a show is called Indian Matchmaking, you have to talk about only dating brown guys, right? So I'm open to anyone and everyone, as are my parents or my family. And so as long as you are a good person, you know, have our values and things like that align. Like my parents don't care if you're, you know, black, white, purple, gray, anything. So
That's so awesome.
yeah.
I just wanted to rewind back to, I totally forgot to ask you this. What sports did you play?
Oh, I played volleyball, basketball, and lacrosse.
Nice. Awesome. Awesome.
Yeah, I was a jock.
Are there any special causes that you have a heart for? Do you want to talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, so I recently joined this organization called Troublemakers for Good. And it's an organization that was founded by two women who are kind of in the CPG beauty industry. And they have now kind of come together to hone all of their best skills and to really use it to benefit the greater good. So Troublemakers for Good really tries to empower women to share, you know, the ways that women can be, quote, troublemakers, but obviously for good causes. And so, you know, I just love everything about their page, what they stand for, you know, women's empowerment, just kind of being, you know, women supporting women. And they truly mean that. I know sometimes that phrase is kind of tossed around. But I think
aren't really doing that. They're just doing that to have that face value of it. But yeah, I totally hear you.
Yeah, no, they are truly authentic in what they do. And so I've been working a lot with them. One of my good friends is part of that team, and she, you know, really looped me into that. So I really love that. And then my cousins are two of the co-founders of the Jihadi sisters. And so
I'm part of that organization, Jihadi Sisters.
Oh, really? I actually just did a panel with them at their Women's Empowerment Summit.
Yeah, I saw. Yeah, that's so cool. What a small world. I worked with them for like 10 years now.
Oh, really? So Tage, the girl who was the moderator, Tage and Simone are technically my second cousins. So our moms are both first cousins.
Wow, what a small world. Oh my God.
Yeah. So I've definitely been a lot more involved with what they do. Like I said, I did the panel with them, and you know, just in talks with Tage and Simone to do other things like down the road, because there is a lot of give back to be done for the Indo-Caribbean community.
Yeah.
And I feel like, they have a kind of good grasp on, a good grasp, and they have quite a network of people. And so, yeah, I've been, working with them to try and do more. So it's been really great.
That's so awesome. Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
We need, it's really inspiring to see you rising up to help women empowerment and in our community, and seeing so many other outlets open up, and like being a force of nature to really advocate for for women, especially in the Indo-Caribbean community. So thanks for that. It's just awesome. I want to thank you so much for your vulnerability and just answering all of my questions I was so curious about. And I really want to thank you and for taking the time, and let's enjoy, the day of watching Vice President Kamala Harris.
I literally get chills every time you say it. I swear I can't.
I'm like, I cried so much when she first got elected, and she's like, is this real life right now? Like, oh my God, yeah. I had to talk to my therapist about it.
Yeah, it's absolutely amazing. There's so much like power and hope and great energy that's coming out of today. So
I'm so happy.
I'm hopeful.
Same here. Well, thank you so much.
Thank
and
you.
If anyone wants to get in touch with you, can you tell everyone your Instagram?
Yeah, so you can find me, my personal account is at Nadia Jagessar, or you can also follow at Euphoria Events.
Awesome. Well, I want to thank everyone for listening and watching The Core Behavioral Therapist, Dr. Trisha Rampersad, and a special thank you to Nadia. Thank you so much. Bye, everyone.